April 2026, the ocean floor near the Japan Trench violently rips open. Just 2 months later, June 2026, a devastating double earthquake shatters Venezuela, leaving cities in absolute ruins. And right now, as we speak, deep beneath the multi-million-dollar mansions of California, the infamous San Andreas Fault is lighting up with ominous, rhythmic, micro-seismic tremors. The ground beneath our feet, the solid bedrock we build our entire civilization upon, is suddenly acting like a hyperactive, ticking time bomb. This is not a drill, and this is definitely not your average clickbait news cycle. Something highly unusual and deeply terrifying is happening to the very lithosphere of our planet. Look at the global seismic charts right now. From the unstable borders of the Pacific Ring of Fire to the stressed fault lines of South America, tectonic plates are shifting, grinding, and locking up in a terrifying synchronized pattern. It makes you wonder, is the Earth's crust finally snapping under billions of years of internal pressure? Or are we witnessing a global domino effect that could trigger the big one? Think about it. What would you actually do if the solid ground beneath your kitchen floor suddenly turned into violent, rolling ocean waves without a single second of warning? Would you run or would you freeze? Tell me your survival plan in the comments below. We are deeply investigating this planetary crisis, so please hit that like button right now. If we reach 5,000 likes, the algorithm will push this urgent scientific warning to millions more because science is screaming at us, but humanity is choosing to stay deaf. For decades, geophysicists from the USGS and NASA have warned us about the cyclical buildup of tectonic stress. But what is happening in this exact year of 2026 goes beyond standard geological models. The crust is not just moving, it is vibrating with a dangerous, unpredictable energy. And the terrifying truth is we might be standing on the precipice of a global tectonic realignment, a catastrophic reshaping of our world that no one is truly prepared to survive. To understand the sheer magnitude of the global threat we face today, we must look directly into the dark and bleeding heart of the crisis zones. April 12th, 2026, 4:12 a.m., a massive, terrifying magnitude 8.9 megathrust earthquake strikes directly along the volatile Japan Trench, sending shockwaves through the ultra-dense metropolis of Tokyo. The Earth does not just shake, it convulses violently for 4 agonizing minutes as the massive Pacific Plate forcefully dives beneath the Okhotsk Plate. Skyscrapers, designed to sway like trees in a storm, twist and groan under the immense kinetic energy, while underground gas lines instantly rupture, igniting colossal firestorms across the fractured city. The automated bullet trains grind to a screeching halt, power grids collapse in a flash of blue light, and the entire eastern coastline of Honshu drops by 3 full feet. Just weeks later, while the global community is scrambling to send emergency aid across the ocean, the hammer falls again on the other side of the planet. June 18th, 2026. A brutal, catastrophic double earthquake strikes Venezuela within the span of just 12 hours, registered at magnitude 7.4 and 7.6 respectively. The epicenters are located right along the dangerous Boconó Fault system, a hyperactive tectonic boundary where the Caribbean plate continuously grinds against the massive South American plate. In the capital city of Caracas, the results are nothing short of an absolute apocalypse, as poorly constructed concrete buildings collapse into mountains of gray dust. The densely packed hillsides, covered in fragile, improvised brick houses, completely liquefy under the intense shaking, sliding down like wet mud and burying thousands of families alive. To truly comprehend why the planet is tearing itself apart in 2026, we have to look past the surface destruction and dive straight into the brutal, unforgiving physics of planetary geology. The outer shell of the Earth, known as the lithosphere, is not a solid piece of rock, but rather a cracked, moving jigsaw puzzle of 15 massive tectonic plates. These colossal slabs of rock are floating on a hot, semi-liquid layer of the mantle called the asthenosphere, driven by intense internal convection currents. The fundamental problem is that these plates do not slide past one another smoothly. Their edges are incredibly rough, jagged, and heavily locked by immense friction, while the deeper convective forces continue to push them forward relentlessly. This creates a terrifying geological phenomenon known as elastic rebound theory, where rock behaves exactly like a tightly wound, highly stressed metal spring. For decades, even centuries, the plates remain completely stuck at their boundaries, but the deep kinetic energy never disappears and it simply accumulates as raw, strain energy. When the internal stress finally exceeds the structural strength of the solid rock, the fault line ruptures instantaneously, releasing all that stored energy in a matter of seconds. The scale of this energy release is completely beyond human comprehension. The United States Geological Survey, USGS, uses the logarithmic moment magnitude scale, meaning each step up represents a 32-fold increase in actual energy. The energy released by the Japan Trench earthquake of 2026 is estimated at a staggering 20 exajoules of raw, destructive power. To put that into perspective, that is equivalent to detonating more than 300,000 Hiroshima atomic bombs simultaneously, deep inside the fragile crust of the Earth. Imagine the sheer horror of that much explosive force, rippling through the solid bedrock directly beneath your feet, bending highways like plastic straw, and shattering steel foundations like brittle glass. When you walk through the actual ground zero of these disasters, the sensory assault is deeply haunting and permanently scarred into the human mind. The first thing that hits you is not the visual destruction, but the deep, low-frequency roar, a terrifying, demonic rumble echoing from miles beneath the earth. It is the sound of thousands of tons of ancient bedrock fracturing, grinding, and pulverizing under immense friction. Then comes the smell, a thick, suffocating stench of rotten eggs, as toxic hydrogen sulfide and volatile sulfur dioxide gases escape from deep subterranean pockets. The friction along the shallow fault lines is so incredibly intense that it generates temperatures exceeding 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, literally melting the deep stone into glass. On the surface, this extreme geothermal heat, combined with ruptured underground high-voltage cables, causes the black asphalt roads to bubble and melt into sticky, boiling tar. Massive fissures, wide enough to swallow entire vehicles, open up across residential neighborhoods, exhaling clouds of superheated steam. Nature completely breaks down as trees violently snap in half and flocks of birds fly in erratic, panicked circles, confused by the sudden disruptions in the electromagnetic field. Worse yet, our most advanced technologies completely fail us when the Earth decides to snap. The sudden, massive shifting of large land masses, combined with thick blankets of ionized dust in the atmosphere, completely scrambles global satellite communications. USGS and NOAA ground monitoring stations report that high-precision GPS networks across the Pacific Basin are experiencing severe signal degradation, showing errors up to 50 meters. This means emergency responders are essentially flying blind, unable to navigate the ruined streets or pinpoint the exact locations of collapsed high-rise structures. The economic fallout is equally devastating, threatening to drag the fragile global economy into a deep, irreversible depression. The United Nations disaster assessment teams estimate the combined damages from the Japan and Venezuela crises to exceed $650 billion US. Supply chains for crucial semiconductor components, high-tech medical equipment, and global shipping routes are completely severed overnight. Major ports are left entirely non-functional as concrete docks slide into the sea and massive container cranes collapse like fragile toothpicks. But as the world watches the smoke rise from Asia and South America, a far more terrifying reality is quietly developing. The massive release of energy along the Pacific Plate has not solved the planetary stress problem, it has merely shifted it elsewhere. Geophysicists call this Coulomb stress transfer, a process where the rupture of one fault line immediately overloads the neighboring faults. And right now, across the vast Pacific Ocean, the stress is transferring directly to the western coast of the United States, where the sensors are starting to flash red. The ticking clock of the planet waits for no one, exposing the brutal divide between the societies built to survive and those left to die. This brings us face to face with the most uncomfortable and deeply devastating truth of modern disaster science. Natural disasters, like the violent shifting of tectonic plates, are completely inevitable events of our living planet. But the catastrophic loss of human life, the rows of body bags lining the streets, is almost always a direct result of human decisions. In this modern era of 2026, your survival during a global tectonic crisis does not depend on luck. It depends entirely on the wealth of your nation, the strength of your infrastructure, and the technology integrated into your concrete foundations. The global crisis has drawn a clear, blood-red line between two completely different worlds. Let us look first at the ultimate blueprint of survival, the technological fortress of Japan. For over half a century, this island nation has poured hundreds of billions of dollars into high-tech seismic engineering, turning its cities into shock-absorbing marvels. When the colossal magnitude 8.9 earthquake struck the Japan Trench, the nation's advanced defenses immediately went to war against the laws of physics. High above the shaking ground, inside the apex of massive steel skyscrapers, automated tuned mass dampers swung into action. These enormous steel conlacs, often weighing up to 800 tons, are suspended like massive pendulums by heavy steel cables, controlled by computer-guided hydraulic actuators. As the ground waves push the building violently to the left, the massive pendulum automatically shifts to the right, perfectly counteracting the destructive kinetic energy. Beneath the streets, the foundations of these megastructures do not touch the bedrock directly. Instead, they sit upon advanced base isolation systems, utilizing alternating layers of high-grade synthetic rubber and solid steel plates, combined with heavy lead plugs. These flexible blocks act as a structural buffer, completely decoupling the building from the violently shaking earth below. While the ground beneath undergoes extreme acceleration, the skyscraper itself merely glides smoothly, absorbing the shock without cracking its critical columns. But the true crown jewel of Japanese survival technology is its hyper-advanced earthquake early warning system, operated by the Japan Meteorological Agency. The moment a fault line snaps deep in the ocean, it releases two distinct types of seismic waves. First come the P waves, or primary waves, which travel incredibly fast but carry very little destructive energy. Behind them travel the slow, devastating S waves and/or secondary waves, which violently shake the ground sideways. Japan's dense network of thousands of highly sensitive seismometers, scattered across the ocean floor and the mainland, detects the faint P waves within milliseconds. Instantly, advanced AI algorithms calculate the epicenter and the incoming magnitude, blasting out emergency alerts to millions of smartphones. This critical warning system gives the population a priceless window of 10 to 30 seconds before the violent shaking actually arrives. In those precious heartbeats, automated systems across the country take absolute control. Gas lines shut off automatically to prevent fires, high-voltage electrical grids reroute power, bullet trains apply emergency brakes, and factory assembly lines freeze. Millions of citizens drop under sturdy desks, brace themselves, and secure their positions. It is a masterclass in technological resilience, proving that immense wealth and engineering can force open a door of survival, even against the most furious wrath of the earth. Now, turn your eyes away from this high-tech fortress and look at the absolute horror that unfolded in Venezuela. Here, the exact same natural phenomenon was met with the crushing reality of economic collapse, systemic corruption, and extreme poverty. In the crowded barrios of Caracas, hundreds of thousands of families live in makeshift, multi-story brick homes built illegally on steep, unstable mountain slopes. These structures were never designed by architects, nor were they reviewed by structural engineers. They were built out of necessity, using cheap and substandard concrete mixed with excessive amounts of beach sand and reinforced with thin, rusted scrap metal rebar. When the Boconó fault system ruptured, these fragile brick structures stood absolutely zero chance. There were no expensive tuned mass dampers to absorb the shock, and no base isolation pads to shield the foundations. The inferior concrete simply disintegrated under the sheer stress, shattering into heavy blocks that rained down on sleeping residents. The steep hillsides, completely stripped of native vegetation and saturated by broken sewage pipes, suffered catastrophic soil liquefaction. Within seconds, the solid earth turned into a fast-moving, liquid torrent of mud and stone, sweeping entire neighborhoods down the mountain and crushing them into massive, compacted graves. Worse still, there was no early warning system to save them. The country's seismic monitoring network was severely underfunded, lacking the modern sensors needed to detect P waves in real time. The residents of Caracas did not receive a loud, piercing siren on their smartphones. They received no 10-second warning to escape their homes or grab their children. The very first indication of the disaster was the sudden, violent collapse of their ceilings in the dead of night. This is the brutal, unforgiving contrast of the modern world. In a wealthy nation, a massive earthquake is an expensive, terrifying engineering challenge that can be managed and survived. In an impoverished, unprepared nation, that exact same geological event becomes an absolute slaughterhouse. The heartbreaking images of the ruins in Venezuela prove that the earth does not discriminate based on wealth, but human society certainly does. The high death toll is not an act of God. It is a direct consequence of structural neglect, lack of technology, and social vulnerability. But as the global community debates this massive humanitarian divide, the ticking clock of the Earth continues to accelerate. The planetary engine does not care about our politics or our economic disparities. The massive energy released in the East and the South has already altered the stress fields across the globe, and the next dominoes are already teetering on the edge of the abyss. The global web of tectonic pressure is tightening its grip, dragging the most prosperous coastlines of the world toward absolute destruction. We must now confront the terrifying reality of global stress transfer, a domino effect that is currently connecting these far-flung disasters. The massive shifting of the Pacific Plate in the west and the South American Plate in the south has sent immense, silent shock waves of tectonic pressure rippling through the Earth's mantle. Think of the planet as a giant, pressurized glass sphere. When you crack one side of it, the internal stress does not simply disappear, it immediately hunts for the next weakest point to fracture. Right now, that immense energy is traveling directly along the volatile Pacific Ring of Fire, charging the major fault systems along the western coast of North America like a massive, overloaded electrical capacitor. The primary bullseye of this planetary energy transfer is California, a region built directly on top of a geological nightmare. For over a century, the infamous San Andreas Fault has been deceptively quiet, lulling millions of residents into a dangerous sense of security. This massive 800-mile-long right lateral strike-slip fault marks the violent boundary where the Pacific Plate continuously grinds northward against the North American Plate. In a normal, stable scenario, these plates should slide past each other at a rate of about 2 inches per year, but they are completely stuck, deep beneath the surface, and the jagged granite teeth of the two plates have been locked in a ferocious, frozen embrace for over 150 years. Geophysicists have long warned that the southern segment of the San Andreas Fault, particularly near the dreaded Cajon Pass, is historically overdue for a massive release of energy. The Cajon Pass is often referred to as the earthquake gateway of Southern California, a critical geographical choke point where major highways, high-voltage power lines, and vital natural gas pipelines intersect directly over the fault line. The highly unusual, rhythmic microseismic tremors recorded throughout this year of 2026 are not minor, harmless adjustments. According to urgent models from the USGS, these tiny vibrations are the definitive, final warning signs of deep structural failure. The ancient bedrock deep inside the Cajon Pass is actively cracking, splintering, and reaching its absolute breaking point. The spring is fully wound, and it is about to snap. If the southern San Andreas Fault ruptures tomorrow, it will trigger the big one, a catastrophic magnitude 7.8 or higher earthquake that will rewrite the future of the United States. Let us map out the absolute worst-case scenario, the terrifying sequence of events that would unfold within the first 48 to 72 hours of this tectonic nightmare. The disaster begins in a split second, as the fault line ruptures at a speed of over 2 miles per second, ripping the earth open from the Salton Sea all the way to the Cajon Pass. The ground displacement will be absolute and violent, violently tearing fences, roads, and foundations apart by up to 30 feet in a single flash. The major interstate highways, including Interstate 15 and Interstate 10, which serve as the primary supply arteries into Los Angeles, will be physically severed into jagged, impassable concrete cliffs. Major high-pressure natural gas pipelines crossing the fault line will instantly snap under the immense shear stress, releasing colossal plumes of highly flammable gas that immediately ignite into towering walls of fire. These massive gas explosions will spark uncontrollable, wind-driven firestorms, sweeping through residential neighborhoods and into the dry, flammable brush of the surrounding canyons. Within the first 3 minutes, the severe ground shaking will completely cripple the power grid of the entire American Southwest. Massive high-voltage transformers will explode, plunging the entire state of California, along with parts of Arizona and Nevada, into total pitch-black darkness. Municipal water systems will fail instantly as thousands of underground water mains shatter, draining the city reservoirs and leaving firefighters completely helpless, with zero water pressure to fight the raging firestorms. Superstructures at the massive Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach, which handle over 40% of all containerized imports into the United States, will suffer catastrophic liquefaction damage. Concrete container docks will tilt and slide directly into the ocean, while massive billion-dollar shipping cranes collapse into twisted heaps of metal. As the clock ticks past the 48-hour mark, the crisis will escalate from a localized disaster into a global economic collapse. The sudden, total shutdown of the Californian economy, which ranks as the 5th largest economy in the entire world, will send shockwaves through the global financial markets. Silicon Valley will go dark, halting the operations of tech giants, data centers, and critical global cloud infrastructure. Major supply chains for electronics, food, and medical equipment will grind to an absolute halt, as cargo ships are forced to turn away from the ruined southern ports with nowhere else to unload their massive payloads. By the 72-hour mark, the civilian population will face a severe existential survival crisis. Hospital backup generators will begin running out of fuel, threatening the lives of thousands of patients in critical care. With communication towers collapsed and fiber optic cables severed, the entire region will be completely cut off from the outside world. Food and fresh water supplies in local supermarkets will be entirely depleted, leading to widespread, desperate panic across the isolated urban centers. This is the true, terrifying potential of the global tectonic domino effect. A shift in the ocean floor of Asia can journey across the vast expanses of the planet, ultimately Zaytoak the wealthiest valleys of America. The warning lights are flashing red, the countdown has already begun, and the planet is preparing to strike its heaviest blow yet. Amidst the rising smoke and the terrifying headlines of 2026, the internet has inevitably exploded with wild, apocalyptic hysteria. Self-proclaimed prophets and viral conspiracy videos claim that the Earth is fundamentally breaking apart, that the magnetic poles are reversing instantly, or that we are entering the final days of a cursed planet. Let us take a deep breath and clear away the noise, and look strictly at the hard, objective science. The Earth is not exploding. The planet is not angry at us. What we are witnessing today is the exact same standard geological engine that has been operating flawlessly for over 4.5 billion years. Tectonic plates have always moved, they have always locked up, and they have always released their pent-up energy in massive, violent bursts. The terrifying variable in this modern equation is not the planet, it is us. In the last century alone, humanity has built massive, hyper-dense megacities with millions of residents and directly on top of these ancient, known geological fault lines. We are the ones who chose to build towering glass skyscrapers and fragile brick neighborhoods over the very seams of a dynamic, shifting planetary crust. The Earth is simply doing what it has always done to survive, but we have made ourselves incredibly vulnerable to its natural breathing cycles. Since we cannot stop the tectonic plates from moving, our only true shield is absolute, merciless preparation. If you live anywhere near a seismically active zone, you must build your personal blueprint for survival right now. Your first line of defense is a fully stocked 72-hour go bag kept near your front door. This emergency kit must include a minimum of 3 gallons of water per person, a 3-day supply of non-perishable, high-calorie food, a hand crank emergency radio, a heavy-duty flashlight, extra batteries, a comprehensive first aid kit, and a reliable multi-tool. When the ground actually begins to shake violently, forget everything you have seen in Hollywood movies. Do not try to run outside while the ground is moving, and do not stand under a flimsy doorway. You must instantly execute the internationally proven survival rule: drop, cover, and hold on. Instantly drop down onto your hands and knees to prevent the violent shaking from throwing you to the ground. Cover your head and your entire neck with one arm while crawling under a sturdy piece of furniture like a heavy wooden desk or a steel table. Finally, hold on to your shelter with one hand, moving along with it if it shifts, until every single vibration has completely stopped. Furthermore, you must establish an emergency communication plan with your family today, because the local cell towers will instantly collapse or jam during the big one. Choose a specific, out-of-state relative to act as your central family contact point. Text messages will often slip through the network congestion when voice calls completely fail, so instruct everyone to text their safety status to that single, distant number the moment the shaking stops. Natural disasters are an inevitable law of the cosmos, but the high number of casualties is a direct choice of human society. The planet will continue to grind, shift, and redefine its borders long after our civilization is gone. Do not be caught unprepared when the solid ground beneath you decides to turn into a rolling ocean wave. Subscribe to our channel right now, hit that notification bell, and join us as we continue to dissect the brutal, fascinating science of our changing world. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay alive.